All right.
Okay.
Okay, so this week we're looking at book 3, chapters 4 and 5. And in the big trilogy, we're looking at chapters 76 and 77. We'll start by setting the intention, just to come together and collectively hold compassionate, loving space for one another, where we can really seek to understand each other, where we can have the intent of hearing each other and accepting one another, and really just to gain a big picture perspective on this material that we're looking at through MBT. So what did you guys think of these two chapters?
Well, for me, I like the first one, but the second one, I guess I really didn't quite. It was a bit too technical for me, so I was hoping that you guys or someone would just kind of make it real, why. I mean, I don't want to know about all the technical stuff because I don't think I can imagine that, but just what it means in real life type of application like we do for the rest. I would love if someone got the idea behind it, because for me, I tried a few times and it just was too dry. I don't know. I kind of enjoyed the first one.
Okay. Well, get ready, Nadine, because the next 4 chapters are like that.
Well, that's what he said, and I said, "Oh my goodness! Maybe if I kind of knew what the idea is about, maybe the next chapter would be easier."
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to get more scientific from now on. I don't know. We'll see. But usually there is always a bigger, like he's telling us those things, but he wants to get somewhere else, right? Or how does it affect, my life and make it like better and make me grow, and I couldn't see that. Usually you kind of see that in one chapter, even if it's hard, but I couldn't really grasp it. So I was hoping that's why I'm in a book club. Hopefully somebody had the insight that I didn't.
Yeah, we'll probably leave with a better understanding after these.
Hopefully I can share with you what I think he's talking about, because I'm a bit of a geek, so I understood what he was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how did you enjoy it then, Daniel?
I enjoyed both chapters. I enjoyed the first chapter based on how there's all these different PMRs within NPMRs and other NPMRs, and how it all connects together. And then the second chapter that we read, it's all about sampling and how useful it is to sample, not based on the quantum time, but let it run for 1,000 ticks and then go back to this moment and do a simulation of that, and then do another 1,000 ticks and then do another simulation of it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. Christine?
Same sort of experience as Nadine. I think I really liked the first chapter. The second chapter was a little slower. I felt like there were parts of it. I don't know if you guys ever feel like you're like on the edge of understanding something, like you kind of have a sense of what it means, but you don't really kind of fully get it. So I kept trying to, you guys know that I like examples. I was in my own mind being like, does this relate to this? Like different things so when we get there, I'll, bring some of those up about how I thought maybe I could relate them to different things that I do understand. But I actually, at the end of that chapter, kind of liked it because I felt like he sort of summed it up, and the summary I kind of got better than the detailed stuff about, the time.
Yeah, I kept putting it off because I knew what was coming. After our last book club, I looked ahead and I was like, I don't want to get into this stuff because it did seem really dry. So I kept putting it off. I was trying to listen to it on Audible, which, because it's so dry, I can't listen to it. So then I read some last night, and so the first chapter, and I liked it. And then I just finished reading it right now, and I liked it. I had to bring myself back and continue, like focus, but it was good. So yeah, let's kind of jump in and see what we got. So the first one, chapter 76, some observations. Did you guys have anything highlighted on that first page?
I didn't have anything highlighted.
No, I just had the first statement where he says PMR is not the only and not necessarily the primary, nor the most important reality. I just like that because, I mean, that's kind of the prelude here. Is that's what we're looking at? Is that there's so much more. It's not just our reality that is what is first and foremost. There's so much more available to us if we have that inquisitiveness or that curious nature to explore. So I like that. And in terms of Nadine, like, how do you put that in a practical sense? It just kind of lightens things up when we realize that, you know, in the big picture, PMR is just a tiny speck. Lightens the mood a bit. Not to take it so seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had that one. That's the only thing I had highlighted in this page, actually, because it's like, you know, don't take yourself too seriously, right?
Yeah.
Basically, the practical.
Right? Like, when you see the big picture, it's like, oh my God, this is ridiculous that I get upset that my shoes don't fit me and I have to return them, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like,
And that's on an individual basis, but as a society and as a world, like, you know, the whole world, like, you know, when things happen, it's very serious, right? We take those things quite seriously, but
yeah, that's the contradiction in there, is that we know it's not real, but we have to be real. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we need to kind of take it seriously because that's the traction that helps us to grow. Yeah. But really, we don't have to take it seriously because it's just an opportunity for us to learn and grow.
Right. And I think that, though, the reason we do need to take things a little seriously is because the only thing that we get to grow from is how we react to our shoes not fitting. Right. So if the first time we get real angry, right, and the second time we do a little bit better, that's why we're here, I think, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it's the experiences that we encounter that, you know, that allows us to grow. Right. It's the experiences that we look at it from a loving way or a fearful way.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so just moving on to the next page then. Do you guys have anything from the second page over?
I love this picture.
Oh yeah, you guys in your diagrams.
I really do. I'm like, oh my God, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. I like that when I think you sent this a couple weeks ago. I don't know if it was before the last session. And I liked it then. I like it better now because it just helps somebody visualize something that's very, very conceptual, and it's just a picture, you know, and they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. I like, you know, I don't know where he said that. I had, I think number 3, it says, NPMRN is a spiritual system experimenting with the evolutionary potential of consciousness. And then actually what he says is that NPMR, you know, it's part of PMR too. There is a part of NPMR that is also part of us, right?
You know, it would be so awesome is to see this rendered in 3D.
Yeah.
Right? Because not only is it a flat picture, but those things, like what you're saying, Nadine, is that, you know, PMR is part of NPMR. There's sort of like things that they interact. So if you could see it modeled in a 3-dimensional, that would be really cool.
That's why I really like that chapter. And then he said what you guys were saying in number 4, in NPMR, the goal for each sentient being is to learn, grow, and evolve through interaction, making choices with others.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's what you are saying. When we take things seriously or when we don't, depending on our choice, well, all of that help us kind of reflect and learn, right?
Mhm.
So that was really, and the intent driving our choice can range from good to evil.
Mm-hmm.
That's, the free will choice part that, people make choices. They have the free will to make choices, and sometimes their choices are more evil. And so that was, I had all this paragraph, actually, number 4 highlighted. I found it really, really good.
Yeah, I had that part highlighted too, where number 4, where it says the goal for each sentient being is to learn, grow, and evolve through interaction with others. Because that's what it all boils down to, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Interactions. The learning is in our relationships, and nobody teaches us about relationships in school.
No.
We kind of fumble our way through it, but that's the most important thing, is how we show up in relation to each other, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why, I was saying at the beginning that, that's very kind of applicable, down to earth. It doesn't matter if he has this model, if he calls it a PMR and PMR, but we all know that, the bottom line is that to be in this world and to learn, because what matters at the end of the day is the love that you give and you receive through the relationships, right? And the interaction. So it doesn't matter if you create a model that you call this or you call that. So that's why I was trying to figure out what exactly does he want us to know in the other chapter, but I couldn't get there. Well, here, it's kind of easy to kind of do the inference that, yeah, that's okay, that's a model.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a model. A model is a model, but
Yeah.
what's real is the interactions.
Mm-hmm.
So that was me.
Somebody gonna say something? Oh.
Nope.
Since it's short, we only did 2 chapters. Maybe we can talk here about that, because that's what's important is how we're applying it in our own lives, right? So if we look at that statement, the goal is for us to learn and grow and evolve through our interaction with others. What's kind of a challenge that you come up across on maybe a daily basis with your interactions with others? And specifically, is there one person that might trigger you? And what are you doing to work through that challenge? What are you doing to be responsible and take ownership and work through that challenge?
Yeah.
Ever since starting to study Tom Campbell and his works, I've been more trying to understand the other person's perspective when they talk to me.
Yeah.
So I let them finish what they have to say, then I might think about it, and then I try to figure out what is he actually trying to say. If it's unclear, then I'll ask for further clarity,
Mm-hmm.
and then I can create my own responses based on that.
Nice.
So that's a good thing, but there are still a lot of times where you kind of still jump into jump into your own conclusion. I try not to do, but it's just the way we think, I guess. We've grown up, and you're using all your past experiences, your interpretations, to figure what he's trying to say at first, but once you become aware of that, you say, okay, hold on, don't say anything. Let the person finish what he's saying, and then see what conclusion you can come up with after that.
And is there a particular relationship that you get easily triggered within, or is it pretty neutral?
Well, where it usually applies is when people are talking technical stuff with me, like on the analytical side of things, right?
Oh.
The facts. But when on the spiritual side, it's different. Like, I'm more curious. What's been your experience on the spiritual side? Because I'm still growing in that area, so I want to hear it. I want to hear what they've been experiencing, so then I can learn and grow further. Like, our MBT experiential nights that we have, right? And hearing, everyone's story is like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
The deeper relationship they have with the LCS. And I'm not quite there with some of the stories I'm hearing. Oh, it's more enriching. Mine is like, it's like quick and dirty type of thing. And how can they when they're talking about their experiences, it's more deeper. They give more details.
Mm.
And with me, it's like, here he goes. I get right direct to the details, and it's really simple. And I realize now that that's the way I grew up in life. It's like things are very simple. I don't share a lot of the details behind the scenes, like what color is the sky? Is it cloudy? Is it sunny? And all that kind of stuff, right? So I think that's what I need to do, is grow in that level and create a richer experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Thanks, Daniel. How about you, ladies?
Sorry, Vanessa, did you say Nadine? I didn't hear you. So
Yeah, Canadian.
sorry, yeah. I had a night where I didn't sleep a lot. I don't know why, and so this morning, I guess my mind is a bit foggy. Well, I'm still practicing the not interrupting thing that we talked about. So I realized that with practice, I become more aware at the moment where I want to say something, and then I say, no, let her finish, for instance. So I'm still, it takes a while. So it doesn't work always. Last week, when we said we were going to practice not to make it about me, I think that's was and there was 2 instances where it wasn't people that I knew, but it's still I was on the phone for half an hour waiting to get through because I think it was with my card. I had a problem, and they said, okay, wait, and then I waited, and finally after half an hour I got cut off. So or even 45 minutes, I don't remember. I mean, after a long time, because I wanted to be. And anyway, and I finally, and the first.
How did you react?
Yeah, well, that's it. The first reaction, like before, I would be really annoyed and say, well, how can they do this and stuff? But my first reaction was, that sucks. But then I realized that, it has nothing really to do with me. They didn't do this to me. It just happened that probably the phone, after a certain period of time, I don't know, the line gets cut off or whatever. And so I was really happy to say, oh, that doesn't really bother me that much like it used to.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let it go, and I'll try tomorrow or some other time. I didn't kind of become like attached, or I have to go through, so I'll try again. Mm-hmm. So I didn't make it about me, because I think sometimes when you are on the phone on people and they are rude or something, sometimes you take it personally and say, well, but actually it's not personal. Maybe it's just happened, right? Mm-hmm. So that was one incident, and a couple of days ago. So I was kind of happy that I didn't overreact, and I mean it's small stuff when you realize it. And then the other day I was driving, and there were construction on the street before coming to my house, and I guess I was not paying attention, and there was those cones that they put and you have to follow. So instead of following the right section, I don't know, I took another one, and then there was a lady, and she started just yelling and screaming at me, like really. And so I was a little bit, because I didn't know I did something wrong. I thought this is the way. So I told her, I stopped. I was like, she was yelling. And I said, well, can you please stop yelling at me? And she wouldn't listen. And then I explained to her, she said, I want to go here. This is where I live. I don't want to continue. And she said, no, but you have to go back and go around and all that. I said, okay, I didn't know. And then she said, of course she knew, and you did it. She was mad. And, she, and yelling all that time. So anyway, so I just and I went around and just followed, and I realized that I made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that the reason she was so mad, because she thought I did that on purpose for whatever reason. And so I think if I wasn't trying, if I was in my old state of mind, I would have get mad too, because why is she yelling at me? It was very innocent from my, but I kind of understood that for whatever reason she thought that I was kind of wanting to do this to just get to her or whatever. She was having a bad day, but it's not a reason for her to yell like that. But anyways, but I just didn't take it personally. I said, well, I didn't tell her I was sorry, because she was kind of freaking. But I just, went my own way. So anyway, so I said, oh, maybe this is working, if you pay attention and are more aware instead of just kind of overreacting.
Right.
Because, what's the point, right? So I thought I'd share that with you, because I've been trying to focus on that.
Good job.
For the last few days, yeah. And it sounds like very, not important, right? But then I realized that before I would have reacted differently, right?
Yeah, and it is important, because that's what our lives are, the accumulation of all these little choices we make on a daily basis, right?
Yeah, then you realize that, wow, you can get upset a lot if you, and people for whatever reason, I just happened to be at the wrong time. I don't know what happened before or whatever, but she was totally mad.
Good job. Awesome. How about you, Christine?
Well, I certainly am better than I feel like I used to be. I used to be a lot more really high strung and very, very stressed out a lot of the time. And I was actually driving today, and I'm like, oh, I think just in general, most people get more calm as they age, right? So I think that is true for me. I do think that kind of working on this stuff definitely is helpful. I remember, I don't know where I heard Tom say this. I think it was on a video, but one thing that he said was something about somebody cutting you off in traffic.
Yeah.
And did you guys remember that when he said, oh, if somebody cuts you off in traffic, and your initial reaction to be like, what a jerk, right? Yes. And to get angry. And he said the story, something about you just don't know what is going on with them. They may be very anxious. They may be a nervous driver. Mm-hmm. And that one little story in the hundreds of hours of Tom Campbell stuff I've listened to is like this little snippet of stuff that it's like I really see every time I get cut off or I see somebody get cut off, I am like, it's this example of you don't know what's happening in that person's life, Mm-hmm. So I have found that to be just this little story that really was very helpful for me. But as far as, applying this stuff to like making better choices, I definitely still am challenged, yeah, you guys know I have a friend of mine that is very self-centered. And it is a challenge, and it is hard when you care about somebody. This is somebody that's been a friend of mine for, 10 years or so. And they're just difficult to like. They make a noise, like they get, they're just difficult, Something happened yesterday where yesterday was my birthday, and I happened to be at an event, and this person was supposed to come, and she just didn't, right? And so it's like self-involved, but also unreliable, right? And normally meaning maybe before this book, I think I would have taken it more personally. Like that choice to not come had something to do with me, where I don't think it did. I just think that this is the way that she is. I still find it irritating, right, to have somebody being I guess my ego wants that person to be like I would be, and to treat me like I would want, like, you know what I mean? Like I would treat somebody else, but that's just not that's not the way it is, you know? So I feel like right now I have this choice, like at this moment, to either make a big deal out of this or not make a big deal out of it, you know? And, so I don't always, even like in the, you know, 12 hours or 18 hours since this happened, I'm like, I don't know exactly how I'm going to handle it, but I feel like I'm inclined to make a better decision than I normally would. You know, I'm inclined to not make a big deal out of it, you know? And I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about something that was said about how the people that we expect more from the people that are closer to us, right? Because we expect them to act better,
Right.
whereas you can have more empathy for somebody that is a little further away from you, right? So I'm trying to have more empathy. I'm definitely not perfect, right? I still struggle with it, but I feel like it does make me more, like in general, more calm. Like it's like it's not an attack on my ego or a value, like that I'm not a valuable person or a good friend. It's just the way that person is, you know, unreliable or a bad time manager or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, I totally understand. And it for me, it was just provide a sense of relief and of freedom. When you react that way, that you don't take it personally, and it's not about my ego and how does she do this to me, or you know how she's yelling at me, and I don't know. I just felt a sense of relief in a sense that you free yourself from this. You're so much freer because you don't take that so personally, and you don't make it about you. And actually, and that's what I discovered. That was something that I didn't know I would feel by practicing this. Is that you feel that, you know, like you said, Christine, she is who she is, and it has nothing to do with me. So it you know, she didn't show up. That's about her. I mean, it's for whatever her reasons are, and it has nothing to do. So it's a sense of freedom, because otherwise we dwell on, oh, she doesn't like me, she shouldn't have done that. And some other things that it gives me that I realize is that the hardest thing is to let go, because you want things to be a certain way, or you want the person you're close with, or your friend to behave in a certain way, like you would, right? But when you give that, you let go of that, it's also a huge relief, because you're not expecting that they do, and you take whatever they are willing to give or to be at that moment.
Right.
And so I didn't expect, and I think that's why I didn't sleep last night, because I was just feeling all those things all of a sudden, like feeling them, like not knowing them, like before, but really feeling them deep down. And I couldn't sleep. I just woke up in the middle of the night, and I couldn't go back to sleep. And I was just kind of feeling that, oh, you know that. Like it's funny, because usually you can't sleep because you are anxious or something. I was anxious, but not in the sense negative, but in the sense that, oh, I'm on the verge of something. I don't know what yet, you know. So anyway, it was interesting. But I'm so tired today, sorry, because if I don't sleep, I'm I'm not myself anyways. But I feel okay with you, so that's fine. I'm sharing that with you. It was very interesting. I just can't put on my finger on it, but it's just a feeling of something that is letting go, a layer that's falling, or I don't know what it is. It's very interesting.
Christine, I have a friend like that as well, and a couple days ago she left for Mexico for a couple weeks, and a bunch of us were grateful that we don't have to see her for 2 weeks. We're glad that she's going to Mexico for a vacation, and another way we're glad that we don't have to.
Sure. We appreciate that. Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Vanessa?
They are high maintenance, aren't they? Those people are high maintenance.
Have you guys seen the movie Wonder?
No. I haven't.
Okay, it's a really good movie about not making it about yourself, making it about other. The storyline is basically there's this little boy, and he's got some kind of deformity where he's unable to. He doesn't go to school because he's like his face is all deformed, and I can't remember what it is that's wrong with him, but something's wrong with him. He's not like all the other kids. Mm. And so the story is about this kid. And I don't know, he's about 10 years old. So his parents homeschool him, and it's a famous actress who's in it.
Julia Roberts, right?
Was it? Yeah, Julia Roberts. Yeah. You have seen it?
I saw the advertisement. That's it.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. It's about, I don't know, a couple months old, I guess.
Oh, it's a new movie. Oh, okay.
Yeah, new movie. Wonder. Yeah, it's really, really good. So it talks about him and you see it kind of from his perspective, like he goes to school and then like he gets bullied. But what's interesting is in the movie, what they'll do is they kind of zoom out. So yeah, okay, the kid's getting bullied and you feel bad for the kid, and then you see the bully and you're like, what an asshole. Like, why is he bullying the kid? But then they go and they look at the bully's life, and they're like, the bully has these parents who are total jerks and like very conceited and just like you don't ever want to be raised by these parents. So then you get this understanding of where the bully's coming from and what makes him do the things that he does. Mm-hmm. And then you see the sister is always like jealous because he's always getting attention. So it's neat because it parallels all these different characters in the story, where what they do is they make you have a judgment on the particular character, like the bully. But then as you kind of gain a bigger understanding and you see where that person's coming from, it gives you this empathy. Yeah. And it does it with a few different other characters. So it's a really good depiction of kind of what we're talking about here, making it about others.
Yeah.
So Wonder, that's what it's called. But for me, I think the biggest challenge that I have is, again, with my kid. I turn into like a completely different person. Like I get super irritable with them. And what am I doing to work through that? I'm really just trying to change my language around it, because when I first hear my son start whining or my daughter start whining, my go-to will be, oh, this fucking whining, you know? But now I'm trying not to make it about the whining, because I'm just trying to kind of hold space and see it from a different perspective. Yeah, it's really challenging for me right now, but I think what will help me in the future is just having that intent that this is something I want to work through, having that intent to have more compassion. Sometimes it's just hard to see the forest through the trees, you know what I mean? Like when you're so close to somebody, it's hard to see that big picture because you're so emotionally involved with them.
Right.
Yeah, that's I want to make it something where it's like applicable, something I can do this week, you know, to see the progress. So I'm going to pick my relationship with my kid. Maybe I'll do one at a time. Okay, this week I'm going to work on Noah, my relationship with Noah. I'm really going to do my best to see him as this beautiful, innocent child and hold him in this really positive light. At any time he whines and I can hear my inner dialogue say, oh, the fucking whining. Sorry. That happens for me. I'm like, oh, the whining. And then I get like all tense and then I'll like yell or something. But I'm going to catch myself when I go there. And then I'm going to not complain in my head about the whining. And instead I'm going to replace that thought with, oh, I want to understand where Noah's coming from. I want to hold space for Noah. I want to love Noah.
So why your son first over your daughter?
Because I feel like he needs it more.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like he does need a lot of attention, and Nala not so much. She can play by herself all day.
I was just curious.
Why are they? Oh, sorry, Daniel.
No, I was just curious why one versus the other. Right?
Yeah, next week I'll do Nala.
But what are they whining about? Like, just they're bored or something?
They usually whine over my attention. So like we'll sit at the dinner table and I'll sit right in between them and Noah will be like, "You're sitting closer to Nala," and Nala will be like, "No, sit closer to me." Like this happens every time.
Yeah. Every time.
But I remember when I was a kid, I was comparing as well. Well, like to my sister, you got more than I did, and
all
then
the
your
time.
parents would then, okay, well, let's split in half, or she's got one more extra carrot than I have, or something like that. It always had to be competitive, or it was comparison, right? So
totally, that's what they do all the time. Yeah.
So do you think they're whining? There's some fear there
Of why they're whining?
Yeah, like that bickering between the two of them about how close you're sitting next to them, right? Like, what is that really about?
Yeah. Or getting another M&M, one more M&M than the other person.
Mm-hmm.
What is the whining about?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of it's fake too. Like, Nala will whine, and I'll be like, "Hey, here's an M&M." Oh, thanks. And then she'll stop whining. Like, it's fake. Like, yeah.
I think it's kids' immaturity, right? Because it's the same thing when I go to my daughter and my grandchildren. They do exactly what you are saying. She has to sit between them, and they fight. And no, she's with me. No, so they do the same thing. And I guess it's just they want to feel all the attention and all that, but it's really kid stuff. But what I find, Vanessa, with our kids, it's really challenging because, first of all, we have expectation, right? To like you expect them to do things or to be, and the other thing is you don't want them to feel hurt, or you don't want them to suffer, or you don't want them to feel pain in any sort, right? Emotionally or otherwise. So I think that colors a lot of our reaction, right? Because sometimes when you see a child whining, and it's your child, or not happy, it hurts you because you don't want them not to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know what I mean? So so you react in a way. You're annoyed yourself because you don't want that for them. You want them to be maybe happier in this moment. Like, I don't know if that also color how we react, right? And there are kids and they're immature and they, but I think as a parent, because you always want the best for them. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that this is a beautiful strategy that LCS has given us, having to raise kids, because it's the ultimate form of love. Like it's all about them. You know what I mean? Like everything you do is for them. When you're communicating, it's for them. It's for them. It's for them. So I think that's what the challenge is for me, because I'm kind of selfish. Like, you know what I mean? And that's where it comes up, is that I like me time, even when I'm in the car and I'm driving and I'm like having a nice thought, and then I'll hear this whining. I'm like, because I want to have my thoughts. I don't want to have to cater to the whining, right? So
I'm wondering if I'm just thinking out loud now that kids react to what they see around us. So are we comparing things? Are they acting how we are reacting? And what if we can create a little bit more awareness to them and say, the sharing or what have you, like, so we're why do you feel that way, and maybe get their perspective and then be able to help them out with that, because we have no idea what they're feeling and why they're doing it. They're doing it because perhaps of what they see around them.
Yeah, opening that dialogue with them, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Go a little bit deeper with them.
Maybe when they're a little older. They're 5 and 7, so I usually get, I don't know. but it's a great opportunity. I love it. I wouldn't trade it for the world. Okay, let's get back to the book. Thanks, guys. Okay, I guess we're just on the 3rd page in this chapter. So it's 655 for the trilogy. I'm not sure, Nadine, what it is for you.
The 3rd page, right?
That's
for me, it's page 67.
Okay.
And I like the number 5, where he really, takes the reality wide web and he just explained how we're all connected.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that idea and the way he presented it.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that too. Were there any other points on this page?
Sorry.
The next one, 6, the last sentence there where he says, non-physical NPMR is, if anything, more real than PMR because it contains a more fundamental reality of which PMR is only one of many subsets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, we've looked at that concept a lot, but I think it is. It's really important to understand that NPMR is a lot more relevant, is so much more important than this PMR.
Yeah, it's just hard to fathom that because we're in this specific PMR and we see things where we have a body, and then try to visualize that MBNR has it's more real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you can only imagine what NPMR looks like, right?
Yeah. It seems this is a lot more tangible.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I can hug you, you know what I mean? But like it being in NPMR, I don't know how to hug that being.
Exactly.
I don't even know how to really communicate with that being. except for Tom Campbell's IUOC, it's the only one I seem to reach out to.
Tom would say you have to communicate them through telepathic communication, right?
Mind to mind, yes. Yeah.
February 28th.
Maybe we should try that for our homework, to do some telepathic communication.
Yeah, we could do that. With each other or with other entities?
Maybe we start with each other.
Okay.
We could start with, then we can level up, right? Later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
The next one down, I had another, I don't know why I had that highlighted. It says number 7, an individual in PMR, once fully aware in NPMR, can access and filter the the reality wide web described above with his or her intent. An individual can access any web page entity on this reality wide web by using his or her intent. And then just a little bit further down, he says, one navigates with one's intent. A person's intent is also his or her filter. Without this filter, one would have the difficulty dealing with all the information at once. Yeah, so again, it's always bringing it back to that intent, right? And it's like the analogy that we used, Daniel, at our experiential, it's like Google, right? When you go to put a query into Google, that's your intent. Like you put the words in there and clear your intent, put the quotations, the better the message you're going to get back.
Right. The quality of your results will be better, right?
Yeah.
At the right intent, the right details.
Yeah, you have to have the right intent.
Yeah.
So cultivating that intent, that's super important. How do you cultivate?
I still find it difficult, and how do you create the right intent, like the way to ask it? I'm still having difficulty trying to figure that out. But I understand what you mean by, going like using the Google search and using the quotes and all that. But see, that's more a tangible thing because you're typing it out. But when you're trying to access the LCS, do you ask it in the same way?
Yeah, I've said this. For me, what works is having a thought and then feeling it. And I learned this at the Monroe Institute, Christine, when I can't remember who said it, but he said it's like you have a thought, but instead of like thinking the words out in your mind, you just feel it. So that there's no words with it, but you just feel it, right? I know it's hard to wrap your brain around, but when he said that, I was like, oh yeah. So then I'll go to think something. At first I'll think it, and then I'll think it again, but I'll take the words out of it, and then I just feel it. Yeah. But it starts in the intellect, right? You can formalize it with your intellect, and then get clear on it. And then when you go into your meditation, take the intellect out and just feel it.
Mm-hmm.
It has to come from that feeling, that being level.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then again, it's like the why is really important, right? Why do we want this? Why do we have this intent? Is it just because we're curious, we want to explore, or is it because we really want to improve the quality of our consciousness?
Yeah.
Tom always talks about like the larger consciousness system isn't going to spend time communicating with your ego or your intellect. It'll help you if it knows that it's going to be a good investment in helping you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But only works.
Profitable. That's
See, I have I wonder about, like, I'm not super into exploring the NPMR. And I don't know if I don't really have that interest because it just doesn't really interest me that much, or because I'm lazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's something that I'm like, oh, I know, like, I find it really like, I think conceptually it's really fascinating, right? But I've had a couple of tools and I've done some meditations and stuff, but like, I think I understand that what you really need to do is you need to be doing that 20 minutes a day, in the morning, in the afternoon, like very, very consistently for a long time. So I don't know if it's just being lazy. It's being undisciplined, or if it's just not the right fit for me, right, at this time in my life. So I don't know what the answer to that question is, but that's something I think about sometimes, because I'm like, how is it that I'll spend so many hours like reading this book and listening to his videos, but the actual like trying to explore that stuff, I'm not really super into it.
That's really interesting that you bring that up, because I have those same thoughts too, Christine. And sometimes I'm like, I have a story that, I have more work to do here. This physical matter reality is important. That's why I'm grounded here. I don't need to go out of body. But I'm questioning that story and thinking that maybe I've just created that story because, when it comes down to it, I'm just too fucking lazy. And too lazy to put in all the time and energy and effort that's required to actually do these things, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I feel the same way as you guys. You just described it so well. It's a time and energy that, but that's part of it. But on the other hand, I just and I don't know if that's what he's saying, but I understand that I am both, right? We are physical and non-physical ourselves. So actually, you can connect with that part of you to start, I guess.
I will say that the first time I used to be into lucid dreaming, right? And that's only happened to me a handful of times. But when that happened to me, that was like, now I get it. Now I understand that I am not just this physical body, right? So for me, that was, and like just thinking about what that was like gives me chills, right? So for me, I kind of had that experience. So I get that. Do you know what I mean? So now I can be lazy.
You're giving yourself an excuse to be lazy.
Yeah, right. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Right? Yeah.
Nice.
I guess if you're okay with it, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to do it, but I wonder if for me, if it would just be like recreational, right? Like just fun,
Recreational laziness.
What's that?
Recreational laziness.
Well, recreational like NPMR exploration. Like what I find really valuable is being able to be like, not judge that woman in the car who cut me off, right? Not get angry every 5 minutes. That's important to me.
Yeah, exactly. I know, right? Like that's how you grow. That's how you evolve.
Right.
I do feel like there may be exponential growth in these NPMR states, right? That we could possibly be missing out on. I have a feeling that there's that. And why? I guess things usually come easily to me. Like, I don't know, but this is the one area where it hasn't. It's been, almost 3 years now. And I haven't had any of these experiences that these people at TMI have.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, maybe it's not for me, But
Are you talking about the remote viewing and out of body experience and things like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, remote viewing, yeah, I know. And see, that's exactly it. Like remote viewing, I've hit quite a few targets, but I'm too lazy to be consistent at it. And like Tom says, do it for 3 to 6 months every day, and you'll have 70 to 80% accuracy.
Right.
But I don't. So again, I think that's because I'm just not motivated enough.
Or you don't think it's important enough, maybe?
Yeah, I guess not. Yeah.
I think that's a good question, Daniel. It's like, is there another part of like you and I, Vanessa, that know that what good does remote viewing really do?
Yeah.
Right.
How does it benefit me? Right.
How does that really benefit your life? Right.
Yeah.
Does it make you more like a more wise person, a more calm and loving? I don't know. It seems like a really cool party trick to me.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess for me, it would, I mean, theoretically, it would be that it would kind of make this concept or this idea of NPMR more concrete. It's like,
Okay.
I know that there's one, right? But again,
more believable, I guess, right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, like I would understand it more. But then the thing is, I remember in New York after we did the remote viewing with Tom, I asked him, I'm like, do we really need to do this? Because I was getting upset because I was like, oh, I never practiced any of this, and like, do we need to do it? He's like, no, you never ever have to do any of these. You never have to remote view. You never have to get out of body. It's all about the choices you make on a daily basis. That's what we're here to do, right?
I love that answer. Yeah.
Yeah, so then there's that too, but there's still this inkling, like there's still this part of me that's like, no, I want to explore. I want to explore NPMR.
Yeah.
I want to go to different realities. I want to take on a new avatar and immerse myself in a new VR. Like I do. I say I do, but then I don't put in the effort to do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the last sentence on this page I had highlighted, where he says, carefully validated first-hand experience must be acquired through a step-by-step exploratory process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when I hear that, I feel like, to be able to do these things, it takes a lot of time. Like it takes a lot of effort. I mean, Tommy did it though. So if he can do it, anybody can. Like he managed to do that, raise a family, and have a full-time career, so there's no excuse of not having time to do it.
Right.
True. But that's Tommy. We're different beings here. We have a different process. We have a different time frame.
Yeah. Did you guys have anything else from this chapter? Before we move on to Nadine's favorite chapter?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Oh, number 9. This actually I thought was interesting for me. I'll read it. It says people in PMR who are unaware within NPMR can use and experience this net if they are connected strongly enough and with enough clear intent to produce a crosstalk into their consciousness, typically perceived as intuition or precognitive dreams. So that I liked because that reminded me of myself. So I feel like that is how I feel. That describes me, that I don't, like I just said, I don't think I'm super aware of NPMR, but I do have like a strong intuition, and I definitely enjoy my dream life.
Yeah.
And when I mean dream life, I mean not dream life as in dreams. Sleeping dreams. I don't have a dream life.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can all relate to that.
Right.
Yeah.
I like 11.
Uh-huh.
I highlighted most of 11.
Mm-hmm.
Just beings in all PMRs within NPMR, N have portions or extensions of themselves that also exist in NPRN. Body in PMR is essentially sustained through its connection to PMR. By manipulating energy in NPMR, one can affect the body in PMR. And I was thinking of Westworld.
Westworld, I know.
Right?
And Avatar, that movie Avatar.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought of a lot of, and in fact, the next chapter too, I was really trying to think about Westworld, all these different things to help me understand what he was talking about. And more so when we get, not to skip ahead, but Inception. Do you guys remember that? There's that, he talks about the time in Inception. I thought that was...
Yeah. That's a good movie to watch to get a good understanding of the next chapter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I watched it a long time ago. I don't remember the details.
You know what? There's a picture I want to send to you. I'm sorry. You guys go ahead. I'm going to look something up for you. For us.
Yeah, that's a really good movie, Inception. Definitely describes what we're talking about here. So I just had the first sentence where he says, to understand reality, one must understand time. So with this, I was like, okay, Vanessa, you better pay attention here. To learn this. And what was interesting is actually today when Daniel and I were at the Burnaby Board of Trade networking, at our last table, there was a guy sitting across from me, and he was into IT.
Yeah.
So then, naturally, the conversation, he was very left-brained engineer type, conversation evolved into nature of reality, and because of our nonprofit, low entropy, right? Like that kind of invites the conversation around big and entropy, and entropy seen through a left brain perspective. And so he said to me, he said, oh, I've heard that entropy is the arrow of time. And I was like, oh, how so? I've never heard that before. And he's like, well, because, you know, when we have the Big Bang, then everything starts expanding and it becomes very chaotic, and entropy, it's very high entropy. So you need a trajectory, a time trajectory, in order for it to continue expanding. So that's why they call entropy the arrow of time. Okay, well, you'd have to, I guess, that really depends on your understanding of the nature of reality.
Right.
And then we went into simulation hypothesis, but I found that interesting, because then when I came home to read this, the first thing is, to understand reality, one must understand time. So I'm like, oh, so how do I really see time? Yeah, so it really primed me to read this chapter. Just a little bit further down in that paragraph, he says, this chapter provides an explanation of incrementing time in simulations, and I like this, to the mathematically challenged, myself. And then he also says, and introduces a unique perspective of the nature of time to the big picture reality challenge. So basically all we're looking at here is we're looking at an explanation of incrementing time in our virtual reality, and then also we're looking at the nature of time, so how time was derived. So that kind of sets the stage for me to understand, okay, this is what I'm going to be learning, the nature of time, and then how time is incremented in this virtual reality.
Right.
I'm just going to plug in my laptop because the battery's almost dead, but did you guys have anything else from that first page?
Didn't highlight anything.
Okay. How about the second page?
The second page I had highlighted, your simulation can approximate continuous time, and thus continuous motion, by making the size of delta t very small. The cumulative sum over the delta t is called simulation time, because it drives this dynamic simulation as opposed to real time, which is what is measured by the clock on the computer room wall. It was interesting because delta t is a specific time, and it does a simulation, whereas in what we call real time, we think it's continuous. Right? So it's just taking a specific time frame, and it calculates the simulation, and this is how we live it, and then it goes to the next delta t. So there's no living it between, you know, continuously from one delta t to the next delta t. It's always little frame shots, like a picture or a movie negatives, right? So you got 24 frames per second, and that's how it calculates everything. So anything between that, it doesn't calculate, it doesn't simulate that. That information is not calculated, and so the stuff that we make between each frame is all in our head, let's say. Right.
Yeah.
So then, like I understand what you said, but what does it mean in like for us in real life? Like, does it have a meaning or no? It's just
it's just how the system, the computers, the big computer, or the what does he call it? The big computer, TBC, how it calculates all the possibilities for us, right? So it breaks it down. He calls it quantum time. So it's the lowest common denominator. So he talks about what, 0.00001 second. So that everything runs based on that 0.0001 second. But there are things that where we don't need it to have it clock at that time. For example, he talks about, for us humans, it's okay for us to be sampled every 1/10 of a second because we don't react as fast enough. Whereas he talks about nuclear weapons and the simulation of that, simulation needs to be calculated at a very smaller time sampling rate because I guess there's so many more factors involved, right, where it requires that much sampling. Whereas with us, it's like, we work at a slower pace, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Nadine, how does this apply to you on like an everyday kind of level? I don't know that you have to you don't really need to wrap your brain around it. It is really just because we're curious. Like we want to know how reality is rendered. I want to know how reality is rendered, right? So that's why for me personally, it helps me because I think what it does is it loosens my grip on this reality, right? Like right now, I feel like I'm so attached to this avatar. I'm so fully immersed in this avatar, in this reality, that I've lost my kind of bearings or my understanding of the big picture. So now if I understand how this reality is rendered, I understand kind of the mechanics around it, then I can start kind of having these little ahas and realizations, and that loosens my hold on this reality being fundamental. Once I understand it more, that this reality is actually not fundamental. It's not that space-time is fundamental. And I can see how consciousness is fundamental. When I can really understand that, it helps me come to a big picture understanding and align more with my purpose, my mission, which is to grow my quality of consciousness. That's what it does for me, but not for everybody. I like the next one down where he says, so then, actually, I think the next paragraph, because Daniel, you were just talking about the difference between simulation time and real time.
Yeah.
And so the next one, he just kind of talks about it more so. And the analogy that I used is just that, so the way that time works, real time works here in this PMR is really slow. Like a day here is like a week or maybe a month in NPMR, right? So that's how I understand it. It's like this day that we're experiencing here, it's going to be in NPMR, they're going to have like a month worth of time. If they were just to observe this one day in the life of us, it would take them a month to observe it because that's how our time, that's kind of like the time difference. That's what I'm giving it, but
I thought it was the opposite way.
Yeah, at first I was like, because the way it spelled out, I was like, no, I thought that we were slower. But it's that we work really slow and they're really fast.
Yes.
And that gives them the time to be able to render this reality for us. And I'm saying them like they're people, but it's just consciousness.
It's a different reality frame.
So so I just sent you that little inception thing. It's like a little chart on the WhatsApp. Does that mean that that's not correct then? That's not the same?
Let's see, you sent it on WhatsApp.
So it's saying that real, quote unquote, real time is 10 hours, right?
Okay, what are you calling real time?
Oh, right there on that picture I sent you. Do you see that in the WhatsApp? It says
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
time, 10 hours.
Okay. Real time is like time here in PMR or time in NPMR?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I think that, so this is how this is basically a chart of the Inception, the way Inception is set up, right? Their math in the movie.
Oh, okay.
So is that correct? Like, Daniel, does that really work out the same way? Is it a good metaphor or no?
I'm just thinking here. I think it's correct because if you look at, say, layer 2,
Yeah.
what would take 4,000 hours if you go to the layer back down to layer 1? It really is only 200 hours, and then if you go to our reality time, it's only 10 hours. So their time, they're working much faster than we are, right? And we are at a slower time frame.
So it does work, right?
I'm just thinking here again. I think I have limbo in the bottom.
I think it does, because it's like, if you think about just some of like the metaphysical stuff you've read, right? Like a lifetime here is, so we're operating faster. A lifetime here is
Lower.
like
We're working slower here.
You're
a
slower.
day there. We're working lower here.
Yeah, it's like a day there. You're right. It's like a day there. No, not a day there. It's like 10 lifetimes there.
Okay,
Yeah, we're working slower. Remember, we're a lot denser, right? This reality is very dense.
Okay.
And NPMR or TDC is the one that is calculating this for us. So they need more time to be able to render this reality for us, right?
Okay.
So that's why it's like a month, and I'm just throwing out numbers, but it's like a month there is like a day here.
Right.
Yeah.
So this doesn't work then, Daniel. It's the opposite.
Well, I'm looking at the frequency. So for example, 10 hours of our time, if you go to layer 1, that 10 hours of our time is equivalent to 200 hours of their time. So their sampling rate, this has to be a lot quicker, right? So they can process more in 200 hours. They can process the same amount of information in 200 hours versus what we can process in 10 hours.
See, this is exactly what I mean when I say I'm like just on the edge of understanding something. I'm like, I can feel it, but I don't quite get it, right?
Yeah. Well, to me, it looks like the amount of, let's look at information and data, right? So they can process 200 hours worth of information in the same time frame as we can process 10 hours of information. So they have to work faster, right? That's why I see it. That's the way I process it.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's like when they're watching us, I guess. It's like we're like going in slow motion.
Yeah. So when 200 hours of their time has passed, it really is only 10 hours of our time frame.
200 hours, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So where does the concept of time as an illusion fits in this? Or
Yeah, he brings it up at the end there.
That?
Yeah, he does bring it up at the end there, so we'll get to that. But I like the next chapter or paragraph down too, where he says, this tripped me out. He goes, okay, the simulation, this is the third paragraph down, the simulation can be paused the simulation can be paused any amount of real time between consecutive time increments and subsequently started up again without disturbing the results of the simulation. These concepts involving notions of dynamics, simulation, and time will be important later on. So it is good to understand them now while the context is still simple. Still simple, Nadine.
That's right.
But I didn't know that. I thought that was interfering with rule set, and I want to know more about that. And yeah, that's fascinating to me. So my understanding of that is that, okay, in our simulation, we so NPMR is rendering this for us, and they can also pause it, and then they can like rearrange some stuff, and then push play again, and then but we wouldn't even have noticed that they paused it.
Because NPMR is working at a faster rate than we are at, right?
Yeah. So I wonder, is that just a hypothesis? Like that's hypothetical, or do they actually do that? Do they like pause us? And
That's a good question to ask Tom today.
Yeah, maybe. Is it my ego though that wants to know?
So it is something manipulating us, right? So if it's pausing it, are they manipulating us? So I don't like this. What's happening here? Let's go in and just tweak it a bit, and then push play again.
Because the first thing that came to mind, Daniel, when I read that was 1980s. I was like, did they pause it and like change some shit?
Yeah, but he's gonna deny that though if we ask him, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe I will ask him about this because that's trippy, man.
Ask him on a let's not record it and say ask him that question, see what you get. What's his answer?
I do want to get a better understanding of this though, because he does say that this will be important later on, so it's good to understand it now.
While the concept is still simple.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's keep it simple, right?
Well, it's all in our perspective. What is simple, right?
Yeah, exactly. For him, this is simple, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He does. I mean, it's a really complex notion that he's trying to break down. Like, it's the theory of everything. You know what I mean? Like, that's a pretty big topic.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
But I think he's doing a good job at breaking it down, though.
Yeah.
And that's why he's so repetitive, too.
Yeah.
I think you have to be, right?
Yeah. Anything else from that page?
Nope.
How about the next page over?
I highlighted the first paragraph.
Okay.
All the interdependent loops are iterated sequentially. Loops that have no interdependency may be incremented in parallel simultaneously. Each level of each process within each level progresses in its own dynamic activity by 1 delta t at a time. As activities are completed, this information is passed back and forth among the 4 levels. The results and implications of this information are used to make choices, continue or modify process, and keep score. Thus, as the simulation time progresses delta t by delta t, the simulated war grinds on.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just basically, she talks about, the sampling rate of each thing, how important it is for a specific activity, right? So I look at it in computer talk as, say, interrupts. So, for example, with us humans, he talks about 1/10 of a second. So every 10,000 occurrences of this clock, it will look at us humans. Okay, humans, let's move it, 1 step every 10th of a second. Let's simulate that, what it is every 10th of a second that you need to. And then other things, like nuclear missiles he talks about, let's look at every, 1 millisecond, let's say. So it depends on the value or how important it is for that simulation to go on. And I guess it's like as if you're looking at a movie, and you know how when movies are filmed, it's filmed at 24 frames a second, and if it's filmed at a higher rate, there's no value because there is nothing extra value that it creates for us. But if you film it at 12 frames per second, you don't see the full continuous movement of it. So it looks like it's broken. You see gaps in there, right? So maybe that's a good analogy in using, why we need to sample at a specific rate. It's just the information we see may seem like it's broken or there's gaps in there, versus like a continuous motion of through the simulation.
And have you guys seen the latest movie? I think it's called, is it Avengers? And it has like Superman and Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
No? Oh, well, that's really good because it kind of explains this. That image came to mind when it's like Superman, Superman, right? Like he's super fast Everything he does is super, super fast. So you can see in the movie where everybody's like going at their own speed. They're like this. And then as they're moving, Superman like runs and saves a lady from her building, goes up the tree and saves the cat, and like does all these things in a matter of like a split second because he's so fast. And for me, that's kind of how it works. Like he represents what it's like in NPMR, while all of us are kind of moving in this really slow motion here in PMR.
Yeah.
We're in a different reality frame.
Yeah.
Or time frame, let's say.
Yeah. Well, yeah, reality frame that has a different time frame.
Yeah.
But Daniel, what you were saying before, that the gap between the increments,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that's what he meant, but you know what came to my mind? You know, when you read Deepak Chopra, a lot of the stuff that when he talks about meditation, because he meditates like 2-3 hours a day, but when he talks about it, he always says that actually, you know, meditation is to reach the gap between the time, to go into the gap. And what he means by gap, or from my understanding, is the no time zone in between those.
I don't think Deepak's
So
talking about that.
when you were talking about the increments and how we see it as, you know, continuously running through, what actually it's not, and he talks into the space or the gap between time. I was wondering if that's what, because he's also coming from a scientific background, right? He's a doctor. So I'm wondering if that's what he means by going into the gap. I was wondering when you were talking, that's the image that came to my mind.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
Who knows, right?
Deepak Chopra, so.
Pardon?
I don't know enough about Deepak Chopra.
Yeah. No, it's just the reference to the space between time, right?
Right.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know either. It just came to my mind, the image of that gap, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. I think it's all tied in because they use different words, but I think they all kind of into the same.
Neat. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So, did you guys have anything else from that page? He does say the very second to last paragraph, the last sentence. He says, we're now incrementing our math model in 0.1 second increments as a subroutine within a larger model that iterates every 0.0001 seconds. And then he says, this will turn out to be a crucial concept later. So just kind of grasping that whole concept, it seems like let's grasp it now because it's going to be really important in a few chapters.
Okay, so I still don't understand what that means. Like if you're so is that saying that the big computer is running way faster?
Yeah.
Like what you just said about Superman.
Yeah.
Right. So if he was like the outer layer, the bigger computer, right? That's just his regular time, right? Yeah. But for us, our regular time is one, you know, whatever this.
Seconds.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
And I think the man model, when he calls it 0.1 seconds, is because we don't need to go faster than 0.1 seconds. Because our resolution, I guess you can call it, is that it doesn't require that much of a faster sampling rate. Right. Whereas other things do require faster sampling rates.
Faster. So Vanessa, the last part that you read, which paragraph is it again?
Oh, the second to last paragraph on that page, and it's the last two sentences.
Okay, I found it. Now increment our main model as a subroutine within a larger. This will turn out okay. So basically, the takeaway for me, just to keep it simple for me, is that we are in this PMR or in our environment, we are slow moving compared to other subset or other time frame that are much faster. We are a slow kind of motion. subset.
Exactly. And if you look on the next page, he's going to talk about it even more. So at the top of the next page, the very first paragraph, second sentence in, he says, the one with the smallest required increment serves as the metronome. So the fundamental quantum of time within our simulation for all others. So it's the one with the smallest required increment. So if we look at time as increment after increment after increment, it's the smallest increment, right? Like for us, it's like big chunks. Big chunks.
Big chunks, yeah. Okay.
So, for example, if you use the 0.00001, so every tick, it'll be next one will be 0.00002, 0.0003, 0.04. So for our man model, it would have to reach 10,000 ticks before it reaches 0.1 second for us. So there's 10,000 ticks of simulation or 10,000 simulations that's happened for other reality frames before it will come to the man model. So, oh, man, let's see what we can do within this next tenth of a second. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I get it. Yeah.
And even further down, so the third paragraph, where he says, in this simulation, the master loop or simulation driver is the one requiring the smallest time increment. The guy in charge, so the outermost loop, is the one with the smallest time increment. Just to kind of drive it home again, it's like Daniel was saying, it's like it's 0.0001, and it's tiny, right? 0.002, tiny. With us, it's just 0.1, 0.2, you know what I mean? Like it's big chunks of time, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry to bring it back to this thing, but this image that I sent you, is this right? Like if we said that real thing is one day, real, quote unquote, real time is the big computer, right?
Yeah, in his book, he calls real time NPMR. I know he makes it confusing, but I guess the real time, the big computer, he calls it simulation time.
Okay. So does this work then, Daniel? Sorry.
I think it does work because it's saying that it's like saying layer 2, it's at 200 hours.
That does. Yes, it does.
So you break it down, and if you can equate like all the different layers with the same time increments, right? So if you look at layer 2, if you have to say divide that by 24, say 24 hours in a day, right? So if you divide 200 by 24, you get smaller increments, right? Whereas when the real time, 10 divided by 24 will give you a much slower sampling rate.
That makes sense.
So if you look at look at the man model, he's saying 0.1 second increments. So let's look at real time as 0.1.
Yeah.
Right? And then if you look at say layer 3, now he's going to say it's 0.00001 seconds. Right? So that 0.001 seconds, when you look at the same time frame, they would be able to sample to do a lot more within that time frame, right? Did I just confuse you there?
No, I'm confusing myself over here.
This paragraph might help you. So just a little bit further down, okay? So the same paragraph in the simulation, the master loop or simulation driver is the one requiring the smallest time increment, right? The guy in charge is the one with the smallest time increment. The local time inside the man model loop jumps ahead 1/10 second at a time. Okay. The low fidelity simulated men who live in that local reality measure a quantum of their time as 1/10 second. Okay, so from their perspective, real time accumulates in increments of 1/10 second. Remember, real time is the clock on the wall, right? Here in PMR. Okay, so 1/10 second is their local time quantum. Okay, sorry, this part I underlined because this is really cool. So then he goes, if they could become sentient and learn to program, they could decide to simulate the growth of their hair and toenails because these functions change slowly compared to their time quantum. So basically what he's saying is that if these guys, he's using a simulation, not like our simulation, but a simulation in kind of like the war games. And he's saying if these war game players, if they became sentient and had free will, then they could choose to learn how to work with this rule set, to work with this time increment, and they could actually program the rule set so that it would now help them, it would modify some of their characteristics or attributes of their avatar, such as they could manipulate it so that their hair grows faster, or so that their nails grow faster. So then I was wondering, like, can we do that then? We're sentient, you know?
Yeah.
We're sentient.
Sure.
And I guess that's what the psi uncertainty principle is all
Yeah.
about, because we can do it to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry. Where are you stuck, Christine?
I'm like, are you going to show up here next week with super long fingernails?
I did it.
Yeah, I did it. You know what it is like I want to understand it based what I was hoping for is that how does I'm trying to understand it in relationship to my understanding of Inception, and I feel like there's something that connects there. What I don't understand is who's on top, essentially. Is there, and have you seen that movie, Vanessa? So do you know?
Yeah, I have, but it's flawed in its understanding of the nature of it. Like it's not correct. Yeah.
All right. Okay. But it's basically the same in that it is layers, right?
Yeah.
And there's multiples, there's math involved, right?
Right.
So what my understanding is, like, are we up here or are we like way down on the bottom, right? Like, where do we sit?
We're in the bottom, baby.
Okay. So where we have, but what that bottom chart says is that where we have, 1 million days, the top one only has 1.
Yeah.
Right. So that means that to me would say that we're on the top.
In that model, we would be on the top then.
In that model, we're on the top, and then so like everything else goes out from there. So their limbo is our big computer.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So when you look at it, what we can do in 10 hours in our real time, in limbo, they can do whatever that number was said.
Like 1 million
hours or whatever it was. So they can do things a lot faster than we can within that same amount of time frame.
Okay.
I guess we have, when you look at time frame, we've got to look at it and you have to make it like a common denominator. So what 10 hours is in our reality frame?
Yes.
Is 1.6 million hours in limbo's time frame.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. Right. So limbo is TBC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So given the same amount of time, in real time, we can do 10 hours of work. In layer 1's reality frame, they can do 200 hours of work.
So here we go. The next 2 paragraphs down, right, he kind of talks about this, Christine. It's the paragraph that starts within a given local reality. We can only perceive events which produce effects that are significant over one local time quantum or more, thus rendering the activities of faster loops invisible and incomprehensible. So then he goes, within the hierarchy of causality, the master or outermost loop that drives everything else is defined as the one with the highest fundamental frequency, which is the same as saying it has the smallest quantum of time. So that's the one that's, I guess, like you're saying, is at the top, or the one that is like the limbo. Yeah, the one that's in limbo, according to Inception's model. It's the one that has the smallest quantum of time, or you can look at it as the one with the highest fundamental frequency.
Okay, so if the highest fundamental frequency, that means that it's basically the most sophisticated, fastest computer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that I understand. Okay.
Then he's kind of like, you guys should have bells and going off, because he's like, I talked about this in book 1. I'm like, you did? But over on the next page, at the top, I don't know why I had that highlighted, but he says, each higher level of simulation with a smaller time quantum represents a larger perspective, a base of authority and control, and collects processes and synthesizes the activities and results created by its lower level, inner subordinate simulation.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we're at the lower level.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what it says.
Yeah.
We are at the lower levels.
Yeah.
But in the same paragraph, I think I do not understand. I understand that part, but then do you know? Then he asked, do you notice the fractal-like characteristic of time loops within your dynamic reality?
Mm-hmm.
Do you get a glimmer of how everything is interrelated and interconnected within a generalized dynamic conscious evolution fractal ecosystem? I'm not sure. I think I have an idea what he's talking about, but I'm not sure I'm understanding fully. And I think that's an important part. I just have the feeling that this is important. I better understand it better than I do right now. So I don't know what you guys take out.
I think what he's saying is that this fractal concept is apparent in anything that we look at. So he's looking at time frame. There's a fractal equation or formula with it. If you look at, say, just like a leaf, the image of a leaf, if we look deep into it and we take an X, or not X, but look through a microscope, you see fractals. There's a structure involved with it. We look at certain things, there's a fractal geometry with it. So everything in our life, everything in our reality has this fractal, I don't know what word to use, but a fractal behavioral. Yeah, thanks. The fractal behavior associated with it.
It adds to time, yeah. And it's
Now
like,
he's
wow, I never thought of time like that.
well.
And then he relate that to time, to the time?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So what? How is the correlation then working here?
Because you have increments.
So you're looking at each layer of time, like in RPMR versus the NPMR versus the NPRN2, and then to the TBC and EBC, let's say. There's some kind of relationship, and that's that fractal relationship.
Okay. All right. Okay. And that's why he says within the generalized dynamic conscious evolution fractal ecosystem, which is the different system and how they are related in a fractal manner, right? Oh, okay. That's I'm starting to understand more that chapter. The more I understand, the better it gets.
Yeah.
When you understand, it makes the whole difference, right? So there is hope, Vanessa, for the other four.
A little bit further down, so the third paragraph in this, where it starts with recall that in chapter 31. He says, I explain that time is quantized, meaning that time progresses by discrete increments rather than continuously. So that's huge right there, right? Because that's, again, another paradigm shift. We think that time is continuous, but it's not.
Yeah.
But it's just,
and
then it's our perception is how we sort of tie one moment to the next moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in our time, in our rule set, it just goes like this, and in the others,
Yeah,
there you go.
Exactly.
It's good to have a visual, right?
Yeah. And that's
like
fractal
for us, it wouldn't even.
So another way for it is like, our man model is like every 10th of a second, there's a snapshot of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with the higher level quantum, there's 10,000 of these little snapshots within our one snapshot.
Within one. So it just flies by.
Like Superman.
That's why in our reality it's so slow compared to.
Yeah, that is actually really interesting. So imagine if you are parachuted into that reality where they go so faster, you get dizzy really fast.
Yeah.
Well, that's why too.
But when you visualize it, I think for me, I'm visual. So when you visualize it, it helps me understand better. Yeah. Thank you.
And that's why when a lot of people go out of body, it seems like they were out for like hours and hours, but then when they come back here, they're like, whoa, that was only 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
so much more there. Yeah.
oh, that's a good point.
And that's that's how you can tie it with the inception as well, right? Because what may seem like 20 minutes in our reality frame, it may be like 2 hours in a different reality frame.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a good way to look at it. Sure. Okay. So anything else? Why did he say that? Are we on the next page? Oh, yeah. So he says here, just in that same paragraph, okay, so time progresses by discrete increments rather than continuously. And that our time is an artifact construct created by to define the space-time part of itself. Okay, he says, in this section, you will see how quantized time loops allow us to create our reality, maintain a living history, and make choices that enable us to learn and to grow the quality of our consciousness. So this, Nadine, is why it's important.
Oh, now we got to the meat. That's what I was looking for, but I couldn't find it within all the rest, you know.
Yeah.
I was lost in the time increments, so I don't know, but that makes sense.
And I love this.
I knew that it will help me, guys. You will help me because.
So cute. And then this
analogy. Yeah.
The next paragraph down, the analogy he uses is so beautiful. I love it.
I love that one.
But also that explains, like when he said living history, that explains that we use time to make, you know, even if it doesn't exist, to make the past and, you know, say, okay, this happened in the past, so now I understand this and I gain like wisdom or experience from my past. But I mean, we make this up in a sense because there is no past. In a sense, it's all increment of time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm getting it right, but it seems like we make that story of the past and the future. And anyways.
Yeah, we're going to revisit that because that's what a lot of people say is that there is no past, there is no future, it's all now.
Right.
Yeah. So he looks at that in the next page over. But before we go to the next page, Daniel, you like that too, the analogy?
I had that highlighted as well, so yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You want to read it?
Sure. You will soon see that time is not a fundamental property of the thread that is woven to produce the fabric of reality, but instead is merely a measurement construct, a tool for implementing organization and defining patterns, more related to the action of the machine that does the weaving than to the thread itself. Each cycle of the loom represents another time increment as thread after thread is added to produce the seemingly continuous fabric of our PMR 3D space-time experience.
Oh, that's good. That paragraph is really good.
Yeah.
I'm going to highlight the whole thing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so over on the next page, did you guys have anything else? I think that was...
So basically, he's saying here that time does not exist. We make it up. That's what
it's the construct of consciousness that we use to grow and to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, and we need that in this PMR reality to allow us to grow and learn.
Yeah. Okay.
But then, like the next paragraph, the action of the machine, right? The process of weaving. So, like time itself, the increments. They should not be confused with the three-dimensional experience of the space-time fabric it creates. Nor should the fabric be seen to weave itself through some spontaneous, mystical, or magical process, wherein time is created in the present moment without the need of factory or loom or the energy that makes them run, much less the design and purpose of the process. So now we're looking at what the theory that there is no time, right? Because he's saying if there is no time, then you're basically saying it's a magical process where, you know, time is created in the present moment and that's being used to create this time. So he goes on, he says that space-time is spontaneously self-created from nothing, self-woven 4D fabric containing all past, present, and future events, is basically what most scientists believe these days, because they cannot perceive the higher dimensions where the loom, mill, and the energy that runs them resides. In fact, our present science is based on the fundamental implicit assumption that the loom and the mill cannot possibly exist or be relevant, because they lie beyond our direct objective 3D perception of a 4D space-time. So I don't know if that sheds any light, Nadine, on that concept of there is no time, there's no past, no present, no future.
I don't know if that paragraph, because that confused me more. I kind of like the other one before. I guess it's a repetition with other words, but that was not as clear for me. It's okay, I guess. I kind of got it the other way around. I don't know, before.
Oh, okay, okay. So, so your understanding of time is, you liked it when he laid it out as though it's a construct of consciousness?
Yeah, it's a construct, and it's actually increments, and we put it all together, and we say, okay, this is the past, this is the future, this is now. But actually, we give it that concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I kind of got it at that time. It's a construct.
Construct of consciousness, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tool, right?
Yeah, it's a tool, but I guess, and you need it because, you know, I remember, I mean, not fresh because I read it a long time ago, but Eckhart Tolle talked a lot about that, you know, real time versus psychological time, and there is no time, it's only the now. And then we create clock. We call it clock time. We need clock time because we need to go somewhere. We need to go to work. We have to be there at 9. You know, so we need to, in this reality, to have clockwork, and then we create the rest, right? But it doesn't exist. Basically, that's what he was talking about extensively. I remember. But you know, it's interesting because the more I read stuff from Tom Campbell, and the more relation I can make to other like Eckhart or Deepak, they say it, but in their own way. It's really interesting. Of course, Tom is the most scientific of them all, and he brings that to the table. Eckhart totally is totally at the other end, and I think Deepak Chopra is somewhere in between. But at the end of the day, that's what I'm discovering, is they're talking about the same consciousness. So it's quite interesting, yeah.
Well, I think with each of these types of people, they're drawing a specific audience who can relate to them, right?
Yeah.
So for Tom, it's you know, it's us. For Eckhart Tolle, it's other people, and Deepak is a different set of people, right? But they all have a common message.
It depends on their background, right?
Depends on
where they come from, their education, and all that. So it's interesting because Tom gives it a totally another dimension, the way he talks about it, right?
Well, it's us resonating with Tom, right? That's what it is.
It's fascinating, yeah, almost the way it explains the others, like, you know, it shed lights on other stuff that seemed a little bit, you know, out there. So it's very interesting, yeah.
I posted something on Instagram the other day that was along the lines of do not take advice from someone who has never left home.
Yeah, I love that. I saw that.
Yeah, it's a Rumi quote. But for me, that's kind of what Tom is, you know, like Tom friggin' he's done left the building. Like he's out in these other NPMR realities, and like he's left, he's explored, right?
Yeah.
That's why I like taking advice from him, because he has such a big picture. I don't know anybody else that has left home, quote unquote, like left this reality frame, and has kind of this framework to explain it from an unbiased, dogma-free space. So that's why I take advice from him.
Yeah, I think I remember him saying that he likes to be living or being in the NPMR rather than in the PMR. And when he said that, I thought, well, that's why I want to so experience the NPMR and see what else there is. And I think there's just a greater experience in the NPMR because there's less rules in the NPMR. We're not bounded by all these rules and regulations. We're able to do more and feel more and experience more.
So when he experienced this reality, this different reality, he must be at the speed over there and not our speed. Like, like he must be moving faster than in this reality, right? From what he's saying in the book, that experiencing it like.
I'm just guessing, but I think that when he would be there, he wouldn't really be able to tell, because it's like when you're in a dream state, right? Yeah, it's like it just is natural that you're operating at faster time.
Well, you're operating at that time frame where that NPR, and then so say you experience 10 hours of NPR in that NPMR frame. When you come back to this PMR, it's only whatever time frame it is here. So, for an hour of our PMR may be equivalent to 5 hours of their NPMR.
Yeah.
It's still whatever that time frame is when you're in that reality.
Yeah, I guess you don't notice, right? Because you are in the reality yourself, right? Exactly. Like now, like we in this reality, we're not here saying, "Oh, we are slow."
Right.
And, we're not moving fast.
Right.
I feel very slow sometimes, right?
Oh, me too. In Tom's sense, right?
We have just 10 minutes left, so I have a few more things highlighted. I just want to...
Go ahead, Vanessa. Yeah.
Okay, so the very last paragraph on this same page, where he's talking about the higher dimensional structure.
Yeah.
And how it may not leave physical footprint. Then he says, Einstein was correctly looking for non-physical footprints in his unified field theory, right? Where mass was nothing more than higher intensity field strength. But his error was looking for continuous fields within the space-time construct, right? Looking for it within the PMR reality. He did not grasp the digital nature of reality, that space and time are quantized, and that space-time itself was only a local phenomenon, a virtual little picture reality dependent upon a more fundamental digital energy field called consciousness. He did not understand the primacy of consciousness as the fundamental substance, energy, or organization underlying existence. So I think this is really, really important here. So the next line, he says, instead of seeing space-time as primordial physics, a set of relationships and definitions, a rule set, a construct of consciousness, he thought of space-time itself was fundamental. But consciousness is fundamental. Space-time is derived from a conscious intent to constrain individuated subsets of consciousness to a specific experience, which we call PMR. I think this right here, this paragraph, is why we have the reality the way it is, why we have a materialistic-based reality. So understanding where we are and then understanding where we have to go is what's going to help us make this paradigm shift ultimately, right? Understanding that consciousness is fundamental, not the space-time rule, not the space-time reality that we are so attached to. And then the next paragraph, he's like, but even if Einstein had figured it out in the 50s, he would have been ridiculed because they didn't have the framework to understand it back then. Right?
They weren't ready for it at that time.
They weren't ready. But today we're ready!
Exactly.
That's what he says. He's like, today we're much more familiar with the potential of the digital science. So perhaps now, in the 21st century, scientists will have the requisite vision to see and understand the paradigm shifts that are required to support a unified theory of reality. Perhaps non-scientists will recognize the big picture first and eventually bring the scientists along. And then the next paragraph, the very last two sentences, he says, when it comes to understanding the big picture, there are no academic prerequisites. You do not need to wait for the science guys and the mathematicians to lead this parade. March on to the beat of your own experience and inner knowing, and they will eventually follow your lead. So I love that because, again, it's about our own direct experience, our own truth, right? Our own wisdom. Not what anybody else tells us, even the scientists and the mathematicians. So trusting our intuition, strengthening that connection within ourselves.
I think it comes down to the scientists. They all work on facts and figures. It has to be this because of, it's proven. But what if it's not that way? What if we were able to step out of that and experience things that seem to be woohoo, and then having experiences like look what can be.
Yeah. Being open to that, right?
And that's why he calls it the open-minded, being open-minded skeptical, right?
Totally. Yeah, just being open-minded. And yeah. Did you guys have any other points?
Nope.
The last, I think the last part of the chapter is more interesting. The three last pages than the first in that chapter. Anyway, it's good.
Yeah.
I think the rest. This is was the base, and the rest would be based on that. So that hopefully it would be easier.
For sure. So I guess we'll just do a quick closing circle. So share any final thoughts or insights, and we'll wrap it around up.
One thing I did have highlighted was the second last paragraph.
Yeah.
First part, tracking the non-physical footprints of a more fundamental reality through the consciousness wilderness is what my big toe is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you do not need to be a physicist or a mathematician to get it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And he says, because the details and explanations are not little picture logic puzzles that exist only within PMR.
Yeah.
And that's where the scientists and the mathematicians live, right?
That's where they're stuck, right?
That's where they're stuck. They're stuck there. Yeah, exactly. Okay, final thoughts?
Thank you for your Superman discussion. Now I get it. Now I understand.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh yeah, I'm super happy because I said, oh my goodness, is this going to be like I will not understand anything coming after that? So thank you, because I feel much better about this whole thing.
I'm looking forward to the next few chapters because you were saying that this is something we need to understand to understand the next few chapters. So
yeah. So
now we're ready to move forward with it. I'm thinking we'll stick to 2 chapters at a time, 10 pages kind of thing at a time.
Yeah, and the chapter 7 actually is long, and it looks scientific too.
Yeah. So for us, that's 78 and 79.
Yeah, for me it will be 6 and 7.
Okay.
Perfect.
Is it 10 pages about that?
Yeah, it's about 10 pages.
Yeah.
10, 11 pages.
Awesome.
Yeah, 12 to, yeah.
Good. Well, thank you guys. I really enjoyed this. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't read this book. But I needed to and I had to read it, and I'm glad that I did. Every time I do dig into it, I get really excited about it. So thank you for the accountability. I love it.
I'm just so grateful that we only perceive what we know, and by talking to the three of you, it just creates more awareness, and we get a better, deeper understanding of what he's trying to say here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to be able to kind of speak the same language,
Yeah. So are we gonna practice the same thing for next week? It's really nice to feel that To me that we're all in it together. So I don't know if you guys want to continue practicing
I would love it. Yeah, let's do it.
the same thing, because it's actually lots of work we're not done. Or do you want to change?
Yeah. I like the being other conscious, making it about other, not making it about ourselves.
Yeah.
And if you want, we can even throw it. One of the Christine, you were saying maybe we can try like a telepathic communication exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Remote viewing is a lot easier to do. Do you want me to draw a target on a specific day and then?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. You were doing that with the experiential. It'd be interesting to see how
we do it.
Or I have a suggestion. We could try and make Vanessa's fingernails grow.
Oh. Should we get Vanessa to measure her fingernails? See if there's any
So Vanessa, I'm trying just to understand. Telepathic means that, like, if we think something or we live something, and then you guys will live something similar, and then when we share it, is this what you mean by telepathic?
It's through our thoughts and feelings, right? We communicate through that way versus using our five senses.
Yeah, it's kind of like it could be really easy. You could actually do it right now. Okay, I'm thinking of a number. What number is it? I just wrote it down.
3.
What do you guys?
5.
Okay, it was 4.
Well, we look at the averages. We're pretty close.
But the average but that's
right.
But that was that's all it is, right? It's like, but so really feeling it from the being level and having that intent. And so if you practice this on a daily basis every day, Tommy says after 3 to 6 months you'll have like a 70 to 80% accuracy rate, but most people give up after a day or two. So that's why.
See, the way I looked at it is we gave the limits. 3 and the 5, so in the middle was the 4.
There you go.
Yes, that's right. That's pretty good.
So okay, so I'll just randomly throughout the next week I'll say, okay guys, I just drew a remote viewing target. Draw what you see, and then at the end of that day, then I'll show you what it was, and you can see how accurate.
So we draw a picture based on what
we try to draw a picture or create an image of what Vanessa's drawn.
Yeah. Okay. So we okay.
So we'll do that, and then the exercise again for the week. So to be other conscious, other focused, to see things from other people's perspective, rather than make it all about us. Okay.
But that's encompassed so much. I mean, I think it's everything basically.
Yeah. But it all boils.
Almost all our choices daily, right? So it's a good topic. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so
Bye,
much.
guys. Have a great week.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.